Hello and welcome back to the channel, Jurobi Literature Made Simple, where I always say I'm going to take you through a journey of understanding various literary concepts and diffusing the perception that literature is a very complex subject. Sometimes it might be a bit challenging, not difficult, but challenging, and that is where we use our intuitions and creativities to understand it. And that's what makes it interesting because it's a very subjective subject. Now, we have been on the journey for a while now on dramatic elements. In our last video, I talked about certain elements of drama that are common in drama and prose or that are similar in both drama and a work of prose. Now, today I want to look at one particular element that I mentioned earlier in one of our earliest videos, that is the character. I want to look at the way characters are designed or treated in a work of art. Then we try to identify certain types of characters. There are different types of characters. There are a lot of them. Most of the books try to mention types of characters and categorize them. So this is quite personal. Individual decide what should fall under types of characters. I'll try to look at the various types that are available, some of them. Now, the first thing I want us to look at today is characterization. What is characterization? Characterization simply means the process of creating and presenting characters in a narrative or in a work of art. Now, when you set out to write a story, when you set out to write, if the story is drama or prose, one of the most important things you need are people or animals or things that will play the various roles that you are going to depict in your story or in your work of art. Now, these people must possess, or these characters, I would prefer using characters a lot because characters go beyond humans alone. So these characters must possess certain qualities to be able to act out the roles that you are assigning them very well. So the process of creating characters that will possess the desired qualities is what we call characterization. A short example, a movie, during the process of casting simply means identifying characters. You notice that if you like watching movies, you notice that certain characters are used to playing certain roles, or certain roles are often, most of the time, given to certain characters. The reason is that as a director or the one who does the casting, the character must possess certain qualities to be able to play the role for you very well. This is real movie time. So, for example, if I want to talk about Hollywood movie, someone who is a martial artist and you want the person to just play the role of maybe a pastor in a movie, I'm not saying the person cannot do it very well, but sometimes it is better fit if you put the person in a position where he or she will make use of his martial art skills. Now, when you come to the African terrain and you look at maybe a Ghanaian, a Nigerian, or any other African movies, certain characters are good at being criminals in the movies because they possess the qualities of acting it well. It doesn't make them criminals in real life, no, but they do it well. Certain characters are good at being pastors. Certain characters are good at being evil. I think we have some major characters in some Nigerian movies that they are, anytime you see them in the movie, you start predicting that there's going to be evil play, or he or she is going to play the role of an evil person because that is what they are used to playing up. That's the role they are used to playing on our screen. Sorry. Surprisingly, sometimes they play this role so well that we start attributing their real life to this kind of roles in the movie. I can remember growing up, some of us thought characters like Pete Edochie, Patient Ozoko, Chiwetalagu Agu, Jimike, Chewa. Some of these people are evil people because of the kind of roles that they play in movies and how well they do it. So the process of identifying these characters, the process of creating, if it's a story, you create them. You give them the features, you give them the qualities. You give Kweku Anansi that role. You give Okonko, you create a character so fearless like Okonko and present it in your work of art, on your narrative. If it is a movie, you must identify individuals that possess the characters, that the qualities that you want in your character. Now, after this brings us to what are the types of characters that you can read about. When you set out to read a work of drama or prose, anyone that is given a voice, sometimes some of them are given, it's so subtle, but once they are given a voice or a role to play, they form characters. If it's just giving a direction, saying one word is a character. Now, we have various types of characters, but you can put them under two broad categories. This is getting interesting. I have a list of them on your screen that I'll be talking about, but as I progress, I'll be introducing some. Like I said at the beginning of today's lesson, we have different types of characters. So I'll try to put them under two broad categories. When I say two, I mean one, I'll talk about major, minor characters. When you pick a work of art to read, all the characters in the book, be it drama or prose, can be subcategorized into major characters or minor characters. There are school of thought. Some school of thought believes that there can only be one major character and the rest are all minor. Other school of thought also believes that depending on the importance of the role the character plays in the story, you can categorize the character as a major or a minor character. Certain characters, like 4, 5, 6 characters, can play important roles throughout the story from beginning to the end. In that regard, you will be right to call all of them major characters. So we say major characters are characters whose roles are so significant to the development of the plot, to the extent that you take their roles out, the plot is incomplete. It doesn't mean that minor characters' roles are not significant, but some of their roles can be overlooked, and the plot will definitely lack something, because once hello is taken out of a plot, something is missing, but you can still comprehend the plot in the absence of the minor roles that they play. Then we call them minor characters. So you can look at major, minor. You can also look at characters in terms of the protagonist and the antagonist. Now, the protagonist is a major character who plays what we call the lead role, the most important role. So the question is, can a story have more than one protagonist? Don't forget, literature is a subjective subject. Therefore, due to subjectivity, whatever standard you pick, you must be able to defend it very well. That is all that is important. Defense, you must defend your stance very well. I will tell you that some stories has or have only one protagonist. That's the main character, what we call the hero or the heroine. Other stories have more than one protagonist. I'll be introducing you to what we call the deuteragonist, whose role is so close to be called a protagonist, a second major character. That's a deuteragonist. That's the last I have on the screen, the deuteragonist, the second major character. Now, we also have a character like the villain. The villain is similar to the antagonist. The antagonist is that character that evil character, or that character that opposes the action of the protagonist. In other words, you can loosely say that the antagonist tries to bring the protagonist down in the story. So when we were growing up, I can remember we used to call the antagonist the last killer. That is in Hollywood movies. And no matter what happens in Hollywood movies, the protagonist never dies. And some way, somehow, the protagonist finds a way to kill the antagonist, and that brings an end. But some of these things, before the antagonist dies, the antagonist puts the protagonist through a lot of pain and others. Now, stories that are not action related or action packed like the Hollywood movies, you still have your main character being the protagonist, then the antagonist being that character that does certain things through lies, through mischief, evil ploys, just to cause the protagonist pain or bring the protagonist down. Now, We have certain antagonists that are so evil that all they think of is to kill or to cause the protagonist so much pain. Such an antagonist is better described as a villain. So a villain is an evil character that tries to either kill, destroy the protagonist. That's a villain. Now, we also can talk about flat characters and round characters. Now, some people say we have flat characters, round characters, static characters, dynamic characters. For the sake of our class and our video, I will talk about flat characters being static. When I say a character is flat, the basic dictionary definition of flat, something that is like leveled, it never changes. So when I say flat character, that character plays the same role from the beginning of your story to the end. No matter the circumstances that the character faces in the story, the role never changes. So if the character is a good person, no matter the lacks, no matter the difficulties, no matter the obstacles, this character maintains that good morale throughout the story. That's a flat character. And you are right to call it static. Static because the role never changes, the same role. Predictability of the role is so predictable. Sometimes the character is poor, maybe facing sicknesses, maybe facing death threat of families, and will have to do something bad to make money. But because the character has been designed by the writer to be a flat character, he or she will never engage in anything evil just to make money. And that is flat or static. Now, a round character or a dynamic character is a character whose role changes as the plot progresses, can move from being good to bad, back to good, go back to bad, or can be a good character, end up being a bad character, can be a bad character, end up being a good character. Then we say that that character is a round character. Being round means you are dynamic, your role changes, you play different roles as the story progresses. I usually say there are characters that changes their role to fit the situation that they find themselves. Like in real life, William Shakespeare said the world is a stage and we are all mere players with our essays and uh, coming on stage. Sorry for that. So if we are mere players, then if you're a player, the situation should demand the role you should play. So if you're at the point of death and you need money, maybe what you have to do to get the money, you change. And I'm not actually advising anyone to change and start misbehaving. No. What I'm trying to say that with a wrong character or dynamic character, they are versatile. They try to change to meet up with the situation that they find themselves in. So for today's video, I have tried to explain what characterization is and some types of characters that you can encounter. I mentioned the major and minor characters. I mentioned the protagonist, the antagonist. I also mentioned the villain. I mentioned the dynamic, that's round character, static, that's flat character. I talked about the deuteragonist. And finally, I want to talk about the foil character. The foil character, Foil character, it's not on the screen. That's why I spelled it, Foil character. It's that character that is brought in contrast with other characters in order to reveal evil or good in society. Now, the good of one society could be the evil of another society. I always tell my students that you can never know if something is good or bad until you compare it with something else. Therefore, to prove to you how good one character is, the writer intentionally creates another character that behaves in the direct opposite of the behavior of the good character. So by judging the evil character or the bad things that this character is doing, you can now conclude that, oh, so this person is good. This person is good because you have compared him or her to somebody else or to a situation that you are aware of. If you are ignorant about a particular situation, you have not seen anything about it. When they are doing, sometimes it's difficult. If you are academic, it's difficult to say it's good or bad. But once there's comparison, so that comparative nature is what we call the character that is used for the comparison is what we call the foil character. We have had a long journey on dramatic element. There's still a lot to say about drama, but we have a lot of encounters yet to come. So our next video, I'll be introducing you to poetry, how I love poems, how I love analyzing poems. I love writing them as well. The reason is that I think it gives you the opportunity. You write less and say more. That's why I love them. So we'll look at the meaning of poems. We'll look at my categorization of the types or categories of poems, some elements that they have. Then we try to look at some literary devices, how I love literary devices. So we're going to have quite a long journey on poems. Then when we finish, we start analyzing it. Goodbye. Thank you. See you next time. Bye bye.